Hi, my name is Eric Stoff. I make music with my wife and my friends in a band called the Stoffs, and you are watching an episode of Little Flock Deconstructed, which is a video series in which I detail the stories behind all the songs on our 2019 album Little Flock. This episode is on a song called Labor Day. It's a really special song to me. I think it does a really great job of painting a picture and telling a story. So let's get started. My wife Brooke and I were married on Labor Day weekend in 2013, so we usually take that long weekend to celebrate our anniversary. And on our second anniversary, we took a road trip to Agua Bay, which is in Lake Superior Provincial Park in Canada. At that point in our lives, it was just Brooke and I and a puppy. It was just us three. We did not have any kids, and we did not have our second dog. We were able to kayak on Lake Superior, do a ton of hiking in the mountains around the campground, and there were these like giant boulders both in the water and outside the water that we were able to climb on and jump off of and just kind of explore. It was really beautiful, and it was a pretty remote area as well, without much like supervision or rules. It kind of felt like an outdoor playground for adults. Anyway, it was a really great trip, and it's still like a lot of the images are still like really vivid in my mind. Like I remember how crystal clear that water in the lake was and how freezing cold it was even at the very end of summer. Also on this trip, we did not have any cell phone service. So we were out of the country, didn't have cell service, and it was a time for Brooke and I to really connect on a deeper level. In the 6 months leading up to that trip, we had just moved. We had acquired our dog, McGregor. We had started our full band that we had at the time. We started a network marketing business. It was a really tumultuous season of our life, and this trip that we took was kind of this deep breath where we were able to like look each other in the eye, debrief, and kind of catch our breath together, which is something we hadn't been able to do for a while. We were working really hard to have choices in our life, which is not something we had up to that point, but that's actually where the line in the first verse comes from. It says, "I caught a hint of fear in your voice when you asked what we would do with the power of choice." So it's a really scary thing to kind of change the game plan and go after your dreams. The power of choice was something that we felt like we were losing sight of only 2 years into our marriage in like the real world. So we were working really hard to reclaim that power of choice in our lives. The second verse is still in that place of daydreaming about our future. I was looking at Brooke as we were quite literally bathing in Lake Superior. That's the first line of the song. We were like in our bathing suits, so it's not as risque as you might think or as it might sound. But I had my glasses on, and we were kind of rinsing off in the water, and I was facing her, and she was silhouetted by the sunset. So I had water drops in my glasses, and I could basically only see her outline against like the most beautiful sunset I've ever seen in my life. I can still see that image really clearly. The third verse is about hiking. We went on a hike one of the days that brought us to a mountaintop that didn't have any trees on it. It was a bald mountaintop, and it provided a really amazing outlook over Agua Bay. And then the fourth and final verse of the song is about a storm that really tormented us on our last night camping there. It was a really brutal thunderstorm, and I sing about the entire volume of Lake Superior being picked up and dumped out on our tent, because that's what it felt like and that's what it sounded like. It was a really violent thunderstorm all night. I was sure that there was a tree that was going to fall and crush us, but it did not, and eventually morning's puffy face came, and we were able to pack up and hit the road. The last line of that verse might sound like I say the Great Lakes fell back in place, but it's actually the Great Links. On our kayak trip, we pulled up to some glyphs, which are ancient paintings drawing symbols, etc. If you Google Agua Bay glyphs, you'll see what I'm talking about. Indigenous people in this area painted these things on the rocks of the coastline, and one of the main attractions there, the glyphs that is still easy to see, is a lynx. If I'm remembering this right, those indigenous people thought the spirit of the lynx, or the lynx itself, lived in the lake. And when it would thrash its tail, that is what kicked up those violent storms that Lake Superior is known for. So I'm kind of writing into that folklore with that last verse of the song, saying the lynx fell back in place as the storm subsided the next morning. And the chorus of the song is, it's a very yearning chorus. I wrote this song after the trip, and I had this sense that it was a really special, kind of magical, isolated trip. That kind of intimacy and connection is rare, even within the confines of a marriage. Because lives get really busy, and it can seem like we're constantly connected to the world outside our marriage. So to connect on that deep of a level is a real treat, I think, for any two people in the 21st century. So that chorus is kind of one of yearning and longing to be back on that trip, wishing that that kind of connection was all the time. Those are the lyrics of Labor Day. I wrote a handful of them the morning we were packing up and getting in the car. It could be fuzzy on the timing, but it really seemed like they kind of just fell out of my pen into my notebook. And some of them haven't changed much throughout the years. But let's move on to production, because there is a lot to discuss there as well. So just like the lyrics, the song came about very quickly. Shortly after we got home, I'm not sure exactly when, I picked up an acoustic guitar with that notebook, and the song really took shape very quickly. So I recorded a voice memo on my iPhone.
When you asked what we would do, oh, with the power of choice.
Brooke and I had a full 5-piece band at the time, and we introduced the song to the band in that style, just basically acoustic guitar and vocals. We played it live once like that, kind of flopped in my opinion. No one was really feeling that style, and it didn't really fit with the rest of our repertoire. So I rewrote it as a synth pop song, and I thought that worked really well. And we ended up releasing it on our first EP in 2016. It was called the Bomb Pop EP. It has a bridge in it that is not in the Little Flock version, and I thought it did really well. I'm happy with that arrangement, and I think both are strong versions of the song. But when I started to work on Little Flock as an album, I had a really strong feeling that Labor Day needed to be included, but in its original form. I wanted it to be an acoustic song that was more focused on storytelling than a groovy pop song. Basically, from the beginning of the process, I knew I wanted Labor Day to start pretty dry and then turn into more of a lush soundscape as the song went on. I had the idea of low piano chords, simple drums and bass, and natural storm sounds. Those were kind of the first things that came to mind when I started to arrange this song, and they really remain the crux of the song on the final album version. So as we discussed, the song starts very dry in the first verse. There's no reverb on my voice or guitar, and that's all you hear. In the first chorus, you get bass and piano that enter. The piano is played by Ben Fuller, and the bass is actually my fretless bass, which is a very interesting instrument. It's an old cheap bass that I've abused and kind of rigged up to be a fretless bass. Check out my gear overview video if you want to know more about that. But I think the fretless bass fits this song really well. It offers a character that a normal fretted bass just wouldn't be able to offer. There's like some, the slides, the vibrato, the imperfection. I think it just adds a looseness that I did not want to lose by using a fretted bass. With the start of verse 3, we are introduced to Brooke's vocal harmony, which is very low for her voice. Brooke is a soprano, and she's singing in the very bottom, kind of past the point of comfortability in her range, but I think it fits this song so well. We were kind of toying around, do I want a tenor to sing that, or do I want to sing it myself, or do I want her to sing it an octave up? But I thought just the timbre of her voice, she had to sing really quiet to be able to sing in that register.
And the view from the spalded mountain top, self-heralded strength from the outcrop, raindrops just seem to appear.
I thought that just sits so nice in the mix and just adds the perfect tone and just offers a lot to the mood of the song. We also hear drums, which are a mixture of digital drums that I arranged and some drum playing from Luke Cross as well. The sound of rain also starts to enter in the third verse, and the reverb is increasing across the entire mix. It's most noticeable on my vocals. So my idea for the production of this song started to really become clear after I had been working on it for a little while. And I wanted it to basically be a man recounting a story and a memory he has with the love of his life, because that's what it is, exactly. But as he gets further into the story, the memory becomes so vivid that the storyteller is basically transported back to that moment. In verse 4, an arrangement of violins enters. Those violins are played by Alan Kincaid. He also played violin on Payday.
And the lake rose then poured out on us. Respect and fear gave birth to trust until morning's puffy face.
They add this slight lift. After verse 4, we go into a violin solo. So I remember scatting that solo to myself on the way home from work one day. So I got home, and first thing I did was picked up a guitar and kind of wrote the chord changes underneath it. He took my entire violin arrangement and just pushed it to a new and better place, as all the best musicians do. After living with this song and the string arrangement, I really can't imagine it without strings. I think they add a depth and a richness to the song that probably can't be achieved by anything else. Can't say enough nice things about Alan and the things that he offered to Payday and Labor Day. So after the violin solo, we have 2 choruses before we go into the outro of the song. And by the time the outro rolls around, the sound of that storm in the background is a lot louder. The storm, along with the cymbal work from Luke and the digital drum kit, create kind of this washy soundscape that makes listeners, I hope, feel like they are in the thickness of that memory. There's also these backwards guitar noodles is what I call them, and Ben Fuller moves up an octave on the piano part that he's playing. At the very end of the song, you hear Brooke sing the chorus, the melody, not the harmony that she was singing earlier. She's singing way off mic, and I have a ton of reverb on it to make it almost unrecognizable. And I also wanted a fairly long outro for Labor Day, simply because of the beauty of the arrangement. The violin solo, the emotional weight of the lyrics and the vocals, just kind of like the soundscape of the storm. This is a really unique track. It's definitely like a moment in the album. And I didn't want that moment to end too abruptly, because I'm interested in making a powerful album as a cohesive collection of songs. I didn't just want to make one single great song in Labor Day. I wanted it, in the context of the record, for it to make sense. So I thought that minute or so in the outro was really needed for listeners to kind of sit in that moment, process through any emotions that were going on at that time, to really relish in that story and all the journey that it took them on. Okay, that's all for Labor Day. It's a song with a lot of history and a lot of story behind the finished product. I really hope hearing me talk about the story and all the changes that the song went through kind of helps you listen with a new perspective. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found it beneficial, and I'll see you next time with an episode on the song called Hand Size Cloud. See ya.